foreign country from. I'll start over. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Basil Nduma. Basil is my first name. Most people know me as Dr. Nduma, and I was born and raised in a small country in West Africa called Cameroon. I went to medical school in neighboring country of Nigeria. It's just a border country to Cameroon. Graduated from med school in 2014, and then I did my housemanship. I'm sure you are aware. It's the same British system. So medical internship. Americans know it as medical internship. But what I'll call housemanship, I did it in Nigeria up to 2015. Then I practiced as a primary care physician, or what we call medical officers in Nigeria, up to 2018, when I then moved to the United States and then started this whole US MLE dream of trying to become a US resident. I took all the steps, and by 2019 started applying. Applied the first time, didn't get in. I didn't get any interviews. Applied the second time, I got one interview, and then the third time I was getting discouraged. I almost gave up, but encouragement from family and friends. I started a master's program in health informatics in the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and I was thinking about going into health informatics, but pressure from family and encouragement from family, I decided to go on with residency for one more time, and then somehow I did a couple of right things. And then I got these interviews, a ton of interviews, and ended up matching into residency. I did my first year of residency at Mary Hell Wesley Hospital in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I did it for a year. It was a community program. I wanted to do fellowship in GI. And so while I was doing my intern year in Mary Hell Wesley, I realized that there was no interest in research. Most of the subspecialties were, subcontracted to, physician groups were not really interested in teaching. And so I could not build that kind of connection with the GI doctors that were covering us, that would enable them to give me a good letter of recommendation for my fellowship. And, knowing all of what I knew that I didn't belong there. So it was a very nice program. Otherwise, it's 100% IMG. Our batch, they took 10 of us, PGY1s. None of us were American graduates. All of us either went to school in the Caribbean or went to school somewhere else in America, from India. I had a lot of India and Pakistani friends from there. And then I was, from Africa. And so it was a very nice place. That program is 100% IMG. Then Mary Hell Wesley Hospital. And then an opportunity opened here in Medical City, Arlington Hospital. So someone left, some PGY1 matched into a radiology position in UT Southwestern here, still here in Dallas area. And so they left, and this position was open. I saw the position on residency swap, sending my application. They interviewed 20 of us, and I was a lucky one. And so that's how I got here. And in my journey, going through all the challenges of applying for residency the first year, not getting any interview, applying the second year, getting one interview, then by the third year, getting up to 5 interviews. I did a lot of things along the way that I got discouraged, I got frustrated, I wanted to give up, so many feelings. And then when I eventually went through the entire process, I thought, you know what? I look back and I realized I was meeting people in the community, and when I see people trying to apply, I know that frustration, I know the pressures, I know the tension. And so I decided, I'd like to, be talking to people about matching into US residency. And so I decided to start, a YouTube video, going into PGY1 and eventually changing programs from PGY1 to PGY2, which is something a lot of people keep calling me and asking questions about, because a lot of people don't know it's possible. It's possible, but you end up burning a lot of bridges. But it's very possible. And if you really want to do it, you certainly can start your PGY1 somewhere else and then, move into PGY2 in another place. And so that's just a brief about me. And now, without much ado, I will go, as you said earlier, I'll just follow the platform. There are a lot of things that, first of all, we're in September. So let's start talking about personal statements and your resumes. I think a lot of us have our letters of recommendations in already. So there's not really much to talk about letters of recommendations. But one thing I've always said about letters of recommendations, if you can have, I know most of us are from different parts of the world, if you can have American letters of recommendation, that's great. Right now, there are telehealth options that you can do and get American letters of recommendations if you're abroad. But then you don't just go to anyone to get a letter of recommendation. You should vet your letter of recommendation writers. You want to, know what kind of people they are and generally what they're going to write for you. It's very important because um, it's a competitive system, right? So you want the best letter of recommendation. And so when you contact your letter writers, you say, okay, I want to do a tele rotation with you, or I want to do a physical rotation, an extension with you, and I need a letter of recommendation. You should outline clearly what you want in your letter of recommendation. You should have, by the time you're going for letter of recommendations, you should have already had an idea what you're going to put on your personal statement and in your application as a whole. And you want a consistent story, so you should want that consistent story, and therefore you should be telling your letter writers, hey, I want to do a rotation with you, but I am comfortable with A, B, C, and D, and I would like you to include these things in my letter at the end of the day. So what will you expect me to do during our rotation in order for you to have the trust in me so that I can have a letter that looks like this? You can give them a sample letter. I want a letter that looks like this, and what should I do to get this kind of letter? If they are reluctant to give you that kind of letter, and then that's not the person you should be using for your LOR. Otherwise they're gonna sit you down and say, okay, in order for me to write this kind of letter, I would expect you to be able to do this, show up on time. I'll expect you to read this material and let's talk about it. I'll expect that when we see a patient, you should present like this. I'll expect that you should do this. And so when you all build that expectation and you come to a compromise, and every week, at the end of every week during the rotation, you can sit down with the attending if they have the time and actually discuss, how you did for the week and how to get better, so that you can gradually, for the 4 weeks, that you can actually, in my experience, I actually had 2 letters of recommendation from American writers the last time I applied. And guess what? Everything that was in my letter, I encouraged them to put them there. It was my 3rd time doing it. And so I had learned some habits and learned some things on the way, and I was able to get them to write the kind of letter that I wanted them to write for me. And so I knew exactly what was in my American letters. My letters back from back in Nigeria, I worked with these attendings, and basically they told me to give an outline of what I wanted in a letter. I was a very good medical student, so I didn't have a problem with that either. And so that's how you get the perfect kind of letter of recommendation, because that counts. It's not just your personal statement. What other people write about you also counts. And so you want to direct what is written in your letters of recommendation so that you are competitive. Letter of recommendation aside, the next thing is personal statements. Now, personal statements, a lot of people overlook it, but personal statement is the only thing in your application where the program actually has, other than the interview, the program actually has 2 things that they use to evaluate you. Now, your step scores, those are pre-evaluations. USMLE board and whoever, they have already evaluated you, they are just sending scores. Your letters of recommendation, somebody has already evaluated you and they're sending that evaluation to the program, and the program just has to believe it. But programs have to have their way of looking at you and saying, this is my own evaluation of this person, and I think this person is good, or I think this person is bad. And they can do it in 2 things. Before they call you for interviews, one window to having an idea of who you are is your personal statement, and to some extent your resume, but your personal statement. And so your personal statement, it's a powerful document that can actually move things. In it itself may not have, a lot of weight in the application as a whole, but, doing it the right way can actually make a difference in your overall application. The way you write can actually give an idea into your insight. And so that's something you shouldn't minimize. And so generally in letters of recommendation, I usually encourage 4 things to be in a letter of recommendation. The first thing is, what inspired you into medicine? That's the first thing. Try to outline it somehow in your letter of recommendation. The second thing is, what inspired you into internal medicine, or into surgery, or into pediatrics, or whatever specialty you're going for. You want to also kind of give an idea, okay, I got a view into medicine this way, but then I got into medical school, and then I got a view into internal medicine in this other way. And so, that's how I kind of fell in love with internal medicine. And then the third thing is, what have you been doing over the years in order to prepare you for internal medicine residency? And are you trainable? Because some of us, like I marched into residency about 8 years, 7, 8 years post-graduation, right? And there was always this tendency for me to write a letter and oversell my skills. And then someone is going to be reading that letter. I'm like, okay, this guy already knows all of this stuff. And why are you applying for residency anyways? So you should be able to balance that. Somebody should, you want to show, okay, I've been doing this in order to match for residency, but I am still trainable, right? There's another thing that Americans are actually sensitive to, especially for us older graduates in particular. I'm talking myself included because I matched several years post-graduation. You match, and the PGY2s and PGY3s in the program are like 5, 8 years younger than you. Are you going to be comfortable taking orders from these people? So you also want to show that, you don't have any problem with authority as a whole. You're just there to learn. You're trainable, but also you respect authority. Those are some things that subliminally you want to put in your personal statement. So why were you inspired in medicine? Why you were inspired in the specialty you're going for? What have you done over the years? And don't come out cocky. Let me put it that way. Don't come out over experience, because that also sells you down. And then the last thing you can also do with your application is if you have any red flags that you want to address in your entire application, this is also your opportunity to tactically bring it in. But be very careful. If you give excuses, programs are just going to shoot you out. Okay, this is a lazy person that gives excuses over and over. Life happens. And so things happen to us during the years and other. For example, I did not have a very high score in step 1 in particular. And somehow I tried to put it in my application. And then I come from Nigeria, where we do this thing called close marking. So they don't really score you A's. If you write an exam on something that is 50 over 100, they'll give you like 60, or if the professor is too good, they give you like 68, 70. You don't really ever get 80%. And so when I submit my application to an American program, they're looking at that arcade system that we used back in Nigeria in the school that I went to, and then they're going to be judging me against people who have all A's in their resumes. So actually, I outlined that in my personal statement. I have a sample of my personal statement that I always show off. Maybe at the end of this video, I'm going to show you all a link, and then how I did my personal statement and how I addressed these questions that I just spoke to. So that's a general outline on how to write personal statements. But I went a step further with my personal statement, in the sense that the first time I applied for residency, I applied to over 300 programs. Second time, I applied to over 300 programs. The third time, I applied to 97 programs, 97, 98 programs. But I had more interviews. First time, 0 interviews. Second time, 1 interview. Third time, I had a ton of interviews, 5. And I was older, more years into graduation. So something changed definitely along the way. Every year I was doing new externships. I was doing new observerships. I was getting new letters of recommendations, and I was learning ways of getting better letters of recommendations. That's number 1. Number 2, I was updating my personal statements and making it the best personal statement that I can have. Number 3, I was researching programs. That's something that's usually missed. Research programs. For example, just today, I have like 2 people that have reached out to me today. I want to apply to your program. One of them said I passed step 1, second attempt. I had 250 in step 2, and I graduated 7 years ago. I want to apply to your program. And I told him, unfortunately, my program takes people who have graduated 5 years ago and who have no attempt. My current program, I wouldn't have ever matched in this program if I didn't come in second year, because the first year I applied, I live just close to this program. I lived here all the years that I've been in America. I was next door to this program. I applied here. I tried to reach out to people here. I never got the opportunity. But then I matched in at some other program, and then an opening came out here. Now I sent in my application. Now they actually saw my application and they saw it was good. And then I came for the interview. As soon as the day I interviewed, they told me I've interviewed 20 people. And when I saw your resume, I thought you were the one. And I'm thinking to myself, this was the same me who applied last year and you all didn't take me. But now all of a sudden, somehow, because you saw my application, my personal statements look awesome. Everything looks great. You all now want to take me. So that's another thing. So personal statement, outline those things and keep it out. Then your resume. Most of us who graduated and are applying late those of us who are fresh out of school, we don't have a lot of experience. Whatever you've done along the way, you can put in your resume. Those of us who have graduated and done some things like I did my housemanship, and then I practiced as a primary care physician, and so I applied. And so the only thing I have to say about the resume particularly is that in your resume, mind the terms that you use. The first time I applied for residency, I used the term medical officer and house officer. And the second year, sorry, when I applied, I had one interview, that one single interview. When I went for the interview, one of the attendings was asking me, "What is a medical officer?" I was like, is it like they are intense or something? I was like, no, it's like when you graduate from, the British system, you can do your intern year, and then you can get a medical officer job, as a physician. It's like a primary care. Then she was like, so why didn't you just write primary care physician? Why did you use all these terms that is, making me to, and I didn't match that year. I had to apply the third year. So I realized from that experience, I realized that the terms that we use in our resume, some people are now, a lot of us are foreign medical graduates. There are a lot of program directors that are foreign medical graduates now, so they understand those. But then you want to make your application as unambiguous as possible. So if you have a term like medical officer, you want to change it to primary care physician. If you have a term like house officer, those are the common ones. You want to change it to something like physician intern, and stuff like that. So those are the, the little name things that, we take for granted. Otherwise, our experiences are generally awesome. And so we can definitely, put in our experiences, especially if you've practiced, that's great, put it in there. And if you have any kind of postgraduate education, you want to put it in there because those things sell. Americans really love people who have done some form of postgraduate education, especially if you're an older graduate. That also tells them that you've been active academically. And I think that helped me because the third time that I had multiple interviews, I actually enrolled into a master's in health. I just graduated from my master's program. But I had enrolled in master's in health the year I didn't match. And I was thinking, third time I'm not applying, the third time I'm spending all this money. And then, I enrolled to a master's program. And so when I was networking that year, I usually would use my American University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. I used to use my school email to network. Use my school email and that gave me direct access because Medical College of Wisconsin, I sent a letter to the program director. Hey, I'm an older graduate. I'm 7 years post-graduation. I'm doing a master's in health informatics. And, I have this years of, medical experience. I practice as a primary care physician back at home. And I'm really looking to apply to your program. I'm looking on there and I don't see year of graduation cutoff. I don't see score cutoff. I just want to make sure because, my chances are limited. And I think I'm a really very good candidate. And if you look at my resume, if you get the chance to look at my resume, you see that I'm a really awesome candidate. And then the guy responded, was like, no, we say 5 years cutoff, but it's based on our discretion. If you say you have a really good resume, send a resume and I'll take a look at it. And this was like about April, May. I sent a note back thanking him. And then I had gone through the website. I had reached out to some residents in the program, asked some questions about it. And so I just, wrote back to him. I'm like, I see you all are so bent on clinical research. So far, I have 3 publications. I'm working on 2 more, which I think I'm going to publish before the next application cycle. I'm really interested in clinical research as well. And I see that you have clinical research on your board. I think I'll really be a good fit for your program. Then he wrote back and said, yeah, that's great. I look forward to reading about your article. And that was it. So we had this email exchange. And then when the cycle opened, I sent him an email. I just submitted my application. I look forward to an interview. Guess what? The next day, I got an interview. Like literally the next day, I got an interview. And I probably would have matched there. I ran that program third. I matched my second choice. I didn't want to go up north. I wanted to stay down in the south because I kind of like the south. So my first choice was Texas Tech, El Paso. I ranked them first. Apparently, ended up not matching over there, and then ended up matching Mississippi, which is next to Texas. And so I wanted to hang around the southern. Medical College of Wisconsin is far up north. I didn't want to go in the snow and all of that. I like the southern weather, and that's why I stayed over here. But that's the point. So that's another thing about networking. So the main thing I'm going to talk about resume, genuinely putting your experiences in there, but just mind the terms that you use. Make sure you use terms as someone in this, even in your personal statement. So sometimes, we make some statements that you want to have your personal statement as legible as possible. Somebody's reading, it should flow, your language to be sweet. You should subscribe to Grammarly and, really touch your application and make sure that, somebody reading it flows smoothly. The points you're making come out very clearly. Somebody don't have to, think too much to kind of figure out what you're writing. Let it just flow and smooth, and then you use the right terminologies. That goes all around. And so those are the things I would say you should be looking at in your application at this time. So make sure your letters of recommendations are well written. Make sure your personal statements outline these facts that I told you about, generally, because that's what people are looking for, what you've done to make yourself better. And then use the right terminologies. Make sure your reading flow is awesome. And then your resume, make sure that you have the right letters. And then the last thing I want to talk about is networking. Networking is key. Personally, I think 70% of your hustle as a foreign medical graduate in this whole residency application, 70% should be your networking. If you are in America, drive to programs. Program coordinators are part of a program in order to sell the program out to the world. And so if you are a potential candidate, you drive up to a residency program and you say you want to talk to the program coordinator because you're an aspiring resident. They'll welcome you in their office, give you, a cup of coffee or a soda, and have a discussion where you answer all of your questions. And you can network with them that way, get their numbers and keep in touch with them, tell them about your dreams and stuff like that. And that worked. I did that for 2 programs. Mary Hill West was one of the programs I did it to, and I ended up matching there. So physical networking is very important. Email networking is great. Some people are using Twitter, Instagram, and all this stuff, going viral and getting interviews. I'm not very excellent in those. I use emails, and I ended up having one interview from email, so it definitely works. I sent over 300 emails out, and I got something like 20-something email responses back. And from those emails, I got interviews from 2 of the programs, and I didn't match any of them because I picked another program when I ranked them lower when I eventually wanted to apply. So that is the nutshell of it. You want to network, go for conferences, prepare abstracts and present them. You don't have to be a resident to present at a conference or an attending to present at a conference. You can prepare your abstract and submit even as a non-resident from Pakistan, from India, from Africa. And if they accept you, get a visa and come present. And then when you come for the interview, if you have researched your programs and you're looking at a particular program, you go to where their 10 is in doing that, and you invite them over to your presentation so that when you're presenting, let them, be there and let them see you. That's how you shine. And then after that, you can exchange, contacts and reach out to them and tell them about the interest. That way you're memorable, they'll remember you. And so, there are a ton of ways of network. I can't even outline all of them here. There are tons of ways of networking. Reach out to residents, reach out to attendings, have another eye look at your application before you submit it. It could just be another applicant. It could be a resident. Reach out and let someone just look at your application, look through the, what you have written. Sometimes there are some little things that, you and I, from our cultures, thing is just basic. But in American culture, it could be a red flag. And then somehow it's missed, and then you're automatically disqualified. And then the last thing I want to mention is have a consistent resume. So if you're saying something in your personal statement, those things should be consistent with what you say in your resume, in your letters of recommendation should have those, and your resume should also have those. So put all of that in perspective, and that's how you should do your application. I think I would better save you all better by answering much more direct questions. So if there are some questions, I'll really rather answer them, so that I can talk more. Otherwise, I can talk all day.
Yeah, definitely. So I can see there are some similar kind of questions because for most of the like non-US IMGs, the questions are almost same. One of the question is that about year of graduation. So specifically, I get this question a lot. Most of the people
Okay.
want to know that if you have like if somebody has a kind of year of graduation, let us say for example for more than 5 years and more than 3 years, then does the program use some kind of filter to like throw them off, or do they consider their applications also?
Okay.
What?
I will give you personal experience with filter. Okay, last year in Maryhill Wesley, we have internal medicine categorical, that's the 3 years residency, and then we have internal medicine transition, the 1 year residency. So I was in, somehow I kept falling in the team of the program director for the transition year residency. So we became really good friends. I worked with him. He really liked me, liked my approach. I'm always a very happy person. Like I said, I'm hypomanic. So sometimes that my extra energy always make people feel really good around me. So we kind of had a bond. And so during the application cycle, I told him I had a candidate, you know, and somehow my guy didn't match. So during the soap, I reached out to this guy and I said, I have a candidate, apply to my program. I'm going to talk to our program director. And then I did. And then, I got up that morning the next day. We're going for ward round. So I got into the program director's office and I was like, sir, I'm done with my pre-rounds. Morning, everything is said. I'm just ready for ward round. When I went in there, he was looking at applications. There were like almost 2,000 applications for soap. And so he was deciding, he was overwhelmed. He was just looking for who to call. 2,000 applications. When is he going to look at all the entire 2,000 applications? And who is he going to call to fill 3 positions? So it was more like pressure to him. That's my point of view. So it was like, hey, you were telling me about your candidate. Who is this guy? So, I called the guy's name and then he went through his computer. The name was not there. I was like, okay, this is weird. So I got into my phone. He had sent his AMC number. I opened my phone. I was like, this is his AMC number. I was trying to show him this is his AMC number. He typed the AMC number in the computer. Nothing popped up. Okay, at this point, I was getting freaked out, and stuff. And, I'm thinking in my head, did this guy really apply? He said, your guy didn't apply. So as I was holding my phone, this is his AMC number because he had written his year of graduation underneath. So the program director picked on my phone and saw his year of graduation. I was like, oh, this guy graduated in 2015. It's more than 5 years post-graduation. We have a 5-year cutoff. But anyway, let me see. So he went in there. He changed that filter right in front of me. Right? Open the filter. He looked step 1, step. This guy has step 3. The other 2 guys who even matched don't have step 3. He has step 3. Let's see. Oh, this looks like a really good candidate. He has good scores. Yeah. Okay. The program coordinator was sitting in a room right there with us. He turned and told the program coordinator, call this guy for interview. And then he was like, let's go for rounds. And that was it. I texted this guy, hey, the program director just said they're going to call you for interview. Stand by your phone. 1 hour later, he was like, he texted me back, yeah, I got the interview. Yeah, thank you so much. The next day in the morning, he sent me another text. I just got an offer. I soaked into your program. I was like, that's good. But this experience, it's clear that filter thing is real. You understand? So I never, when I was applying for residency, they said filter, all of this stuff. I didn't understand. This guy's name didn't show up anywhere, which means he was nowhere to be found. So those filters are real. And that's why I keep saying that when you're applying to programs, make sure that you reach out to people in the program. Sometimes, like my current program, it says on the website that they don't sponsor visas. But I have met 2 ladies in the program, PGY ones, who are on visa. So maybe they've soaped, maybe the program soaped them in because last year I think they had like 3 or 4 positions. So maybe they soaped out of desperation. I don't know. You understand? But you want to, that's where program research comes in. And yes, those filters are real. And if you're an older graduate or you don't have the score cut off, they're just going to filter you out. And this is when networking matters. You have to network and make sure somebody sees your application. Very important. You have to network. Because if you're an older graduate and you don't have the required score, nobody's going to look at the application. All the other good things, all the awesome personal statement is just going to be useless if no one sees your application. So networking is what bridges this, because you actually get people to open that application and take a look at it. And that way, they can actually decide, okay, this is a good candidate, I'm going to call them for interview or not. So yes, filters are a big deal. And you should take those seriously. And researching programs and networking is what is going to solve that problem.
Okay, so you like recommend that if some of the program has, like, let us say, for example, if they specifically put a cutoff a score of around 225 to 40, then everybody who has lower score than that, it's better not to apply, right?
Yeah, generally it's better if you have a low budget. If you have a low budget, because it's all about how much you're going to spend for the entire application, right? If you have a low budget, then you want to pick, like, for example, I applied the first year for residency, I applied to over 300 programs, 0 interview. Second year, I applied for residency, I applied to over 300 programs, 1 interview, and I didn't match. Third year, I applied to 97 programs, 98 programs, actually. I always confused. I applied 97, and then later on, somebody called me about 1 program, then I sent out 98 programs altogether. And I ended up with 5 interviews, right? So it's not about the number of programs, but what happened in the third year was that I did program research, and then I wrote personalized personal statements. My personal statement, I'll write the same thing all over, and then the last paragraph, I'm going to leave it for that program, and I named the program by name. I'm specifically interested in Mary Hill Wesley Hospital. I discussed with some of the residents, and they said, yeah, our selling point here is procedures. We do a lot of chest tubes, even internal medicine residents, they put chest tubes, peritoneal drains. We do a lot of airways. We do central lines, and and because it's a community program, they push residents to learn all of that stuff. So if you really want to learn procedures, this is where you learn it. I knew that point exactly, and so I put it in my resume. And then the other thing they said was it was an awesome residency family. Everyone had everyone's back. So what I ended up doing was my last paragraph for Mary Hill Wesley. I say, I'm specifically applying to Mary Hill Wesley Hospital for the following reasons. I have reached out to a lot of residents in the program, and I consistently hear about learning procedures. I really love procedures. I've started learning some procedures even at this point in my life, and doing my residency where I'm going to master all these procedures is something I'm looking for, and so that's why I'm applying to this program, because I believe it's in confirmation with my dreams and my visions of what my future residency, my future attending life is going to be like. And that was the ending statement for that. When I applied, I was doing my master's in University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. They have like 2 internal medicine residency programs. When I, sent them a letter, I told them something like, I'm currently doing my master's in health informatics at this university. I understand the university culture, and it's something that I've fallen in love with. And I think that, matching into your residency program from your master's program is just going to be awesome for me, because I feel like I'm already a member of, of the system, and I understand it. And so that was unique to that, that program. And so I wrote 97 personal statements, and I uploaded. You can upload 97. Just be very careful that you don't write Mary Hill Wesley and then you go and upload it when you're applying to programs. You go and upload Mary Hill Wesley on the Medical College of Wisconsin, then that's automatic disqualification. So you have to be careful with that. But you can load 97 personal statements on there, name them properly, so that when you're applying, you just click. It makes your life easier. And so that's how to overcome that. Personalize your application, research programs. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, definitely. That was quite insightful. One more thing that I can see in the chat also, and so many people have commented on the Google Doc file also. Like, there is one question that if somebody is on J1 visa, let's say already they are working in the US as a researcher, or if they are married to somebody who has H1B visa and he or she is in H4 visa, right? So for whatever I have understanding, I think it still falls under non-US IMG, right? So does
Yes.
that give leverage, or it's better to when you're applying to the program, let them know that you require visa sponsorship?
Yes, I think so. I think if you already have a way in the system and you're already on some kind of visa that really allows you to work here, I'm not very sure, but I believe that I think when we matched PGY1, I had someone who's from Canada. His origin is India, but his wife works with one of the IT companies here, and so he was on some form of visa. He didn't need any visa sponsorship. The program just take him like that because he has, through his wife, he has some form of employment authorization document already that gives him access into the system. But I'm not sure how J1 from a research program transfers to. I'm not very familiar with how that transfers.
I've done research on that. Basically, the thing is that if you are already on a J1 visa, like you are a research scholar at some other university, because I'm also working as a research fellow at one of the universities at Texas State, it doesn't give you any kind of leverage, because at the end of the day, when you match, right? So when you match, you will have to transfer your visa back again to J1 as a physician. Because as a research fellow, if you're working as a researcher anywhere at any university, it doesn't give you any kind of access to have any kind of like clinical encounter with any kind of patient. So at the end of the day, ECFMG has to sponsor your visa and you have to go through the same process. If you are on a J1 visa also, then you need to make the programs clear that you'll require the visa sponsorship. It's better to be clear because in the past, when I was applying for clinical research coordinator position, I got multiple interviews. But the problem was most of the programs they didn't like a sponsor visa for those positions. So I always used to ask them at first clearly, okay, so do you sponsor visa or not? Because I'm a visa requiring candidate. If you don't sponsor a visa, let's not have the discussion because you are wasting the time at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think they
exactly.
would
Exactly. Yeah, actually, yeah, that makes sense because the requirement for a J1 visa is that you have to be employed in this organization. So if you have a J1 visa where you're doing a clinical research and then you're going to move to residency, the condition for a J1 visa is that you are supposed to continue to have that employment. So if you march into residency and you're leaving that employment, then that is and J1 is giving you based on the institution. You cannot leave from that institution and go to another one. Once you have a J1 from an institution, you have to stay there. So if you march into residency and you're going to leave this program to another program, once you tell this program that you're leaving and your employment ends, then the J1 visa automatically ends. And so this other program has to give you that offer, and then they have to work with you and and yes, to work that. But I think H1, somebody's talking about H4. H4 helps. Yeah, I think if you're on any of the H is different. H is actually a work permit. So if you have a spouse who is on H1B and then somehow you have any of the H categories, I think you can match directly into residency. I don't think the program has to sponsor you per se, as long as your spouse stays employed in wherever they are. That's my understanding. I'm not very sure, but I think so. Because H2 is hinged on H2 is hinged on the H1. So as long as the H1B is valid, that H2 is valid, and you can use the H2 to do whatever you want to do. So the program will just take you as a valid work permit, and you're gonna go forward. So I don't think you need exactly a visa sponsorship if you're on H2 from a spouse.
Because you already have work authorization, you should find. So one more question that is quite like I can see everywhere. It is about geographical preference and setting preference. So what do you suggest? Should the candidates or should the applicants mention specifically about their preference about any kind of geographical setting, or just leave it like
No, okay.
I don't
I would
prefer
not
any kind of
encourage
geographical
you mean
preference.
the signaling and choosing geographic location, right? I would strongly encourage that you signal, because the people who signal, I have a whole video on my YouTube. The people who signal, it actually shows on your it shows on the, like, okay, I'm the program director, and then you signal a program. Now when I go on that signal, I either see a signal or I don't see anything at all. Does that make sense? So if I don't see anything at all, it means two things. Either you did not signal our program and signal other programs, or you do not use a signal at all. You decide to use signal or not, it's optional. But then if you look at programs, okay, let me give you an example. I have a whole chart from the match from last year, a whole chart that shows the number of people who signaled, the number of interviews for the highly competitive programs and the least competitive programs. I actually showed that on internet. If you have chance, go to my channel and take a look at it. There's a whole chart from the highly competitive programs. So you see that the very competitive programs, they receive something like 15,000 applications, right? And they have to probably take 20 people. For most, on average, residency program, average internal medicine residence is 20 people that they have to take. So they receive almost 15,000 applications out of it. And most competitive programs, people who apply to competitive programs generally are competitive candidates. And there are a lot of competitive candidates in the entire application cycle. So if you signal the program, and out of almost 15,000 who applied, about 2,000 signal. So what these programs were doing is they just take the 2,000 who signal and use it as the first cutoff. So if you do not signal us, we're just gonna cut you out. And then the 2,000 who signal us is a guarantee that If you signal us, you only have 7 options to signal. So if you signal us, that means you are really considering us. Because, and then now they take those and then they pick out of the 2,000, they're going to call 100 people for interview and pick 20. They are sure that these 20 are going to come to their program. And that makes sense because competitive programs sometimes go unmatched. And that's a lot of pressure for them because if competitive programs are looking for competitive candidates are being looked for by all the competitive programs. So the competitive candidates interview in all the competitive programs, but they can only match in one. So if I'm interviewing at Harvard, I'm going to tell Harvard, hey, you are my first choice. Then I go to Johns Hopkins, hey, you are my first choice. Then I go to Princeton, hey, you're my first choice. Of course, I'm going to do that. But then guess what? Harvard is going to rank you. Johns Hopkins is going to rank you. Princeton is going to rank you. But guess what? You can only match in your first choice. And then Harvard or Princeton or Johns Hopkins is going to go unmatched because they were banking on you and you didn't show up. But then if you have 7 options to signal and you signal a program, the program knows that, okay, for sure, this person is strongly considering being here because out of how many applications that they're going to send out of 100 applications they're going to send out, they only have 7 options to signal. And so they're going to signal the programs that they really think they're going to go to. So, programs are now using signal. So I would say, yeah. And then generally, it's not clear. There's not data to show this. But the discussion that is going around is that if you choose a certain geographic region, if you want to signal programs in that geographic region. Because if you choose geographic region, let's say you choose the North 3 or 3 geographic, you choose the Northeast, and then there's a program in the South that you signal, and you signal a program in the South, and the person in the South is looking at your signal, you didn't choose their geographic region, but you signal their program, they're going to have a mixed feeling. That's what people are saying. There is no data to back this. But this is common, and sometimes there's no smoke without fire. So the common talk that is going around is that it's generally encouraged that unless you really have some connections, if you have discussed with the program, you have connections in that program that is outside of your signal, it's encouraged that if you pick a geographic region, signal programs in that geographic region because it shows commitment. It shows that I want to be in the South. I'm signaling a program that is within the Southeast region, right? So anybody looking at the application is going to say, okay, this person is committed to the region. This person is committed to this program in this region. And so that kind of sells you more. And this person has signaled us, so it kind of sells you more. So I would encourage you to signal than not to signal. And I would encourage you to actually pick geographic locations than not to pick geographic locations. I hope that answered the question.
No, that's awesome. That is exactly what I also do.
Yeah.
And in fact, Residency Explorer has put in a nice chart, right? And they have also presented like a plot, and in that they have shown around 25 to 75% responses, in which most of the programs at which most of the applicants actually signal to, they were given interviews at so many instances. But there is a kind of one big problem in most of the candidates is that most of the candidates tend to give signals to the similar kind of programs, like most of the programs in let's say mid-Atlantic region or New York, New Jersey, they get most of the signals.
Yeah, that's because
if a program has around 5,000 signals, then at the end of the day, yeah, that is what I found while I was doing my research on Residency Explorer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, most of the programs are in, like for internal medicine in particular, almost 40% of internal medicine programs in the entire USA, almost 30 something to 40% of all internal medicine positions in New York. So if you are going to that area, probability is that you have a higher chance in that New York area than most of the others because New York has the highest number of internal medicine programs. So a lot of people end up choosing that region.
One more question that I see at so many places that so many like applicants are asking that is it fine if we apply to both the specialties like internal medicine also and family medicine also at the same program? Will the program know that the applicant has applied to both of them?
My understanding is no, they don't know. Tons of applications come in, and some people will just say avoid it just to be safe, but there is no time when internal medicine program director is going to go and talk to family medicine program director, like, hey, who applied to your program? Hey, who applied? No. Those are two independent programs. For example, in Medical City, we have internal medicine, we have family medicine. I don't even think that the program directors even see each other. So the big answer is no. You can actually apply to family medicine and internal medicine in the same program, and you can interview in both same program. So I don't really see any big difference. Some people will just say out of to be safe if something happens, but being in the program and seeing how these attendings work, it's very difficult to say that you'll be somehow they are going to know in the internal medicine side that you apply for the family medicine side, or vice versa. First of all, it's confidential. Programs according to ECFMG, NRMP rule, programs are not supposed to talk to, program directors are not supposed to talk to other program directors about who applied to the program. That because it's confidential. It's a confidential thing to the program, so they are not supposed to disclose. That's number one. Number two, if you're interviewing with the program, it's against NRMP rule for whoever is interviewing you to ask where you apply to and which other programs you apply to and which other specialties you apply. You can decide to volunteer the information, but if a program asks you that, you have the right to report that program. Now, whether you report the program or not is all up to you, because that's going to reduce your chances of matching in that program. But they cannot ask you whether you apply to other programs. So they can only say, okay, how has your other interviews been going? They cannot tell you, okay, where did you interview, or which other specialties did you apply to? Those are illegal questions. And if you are asked those questions, you can choose to report. So yes, you can apply to other specialties because your application is confidential and it's not supposed to be told to other specialties.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for that. One more thing that I see everywhere this question is popping up. So many people are interested in trying to know that out of those 10 experiences, because right now you have a limitation, you can add only up to 10 experiences in your ERA CV. So where do we add hobbies, or we leave it like we don't add any kind of hobbies into our ERA CV? What do you suggest?
What was that, publications? I didn't get the question. Hello?
The hobbies. Like there was a separate space where you can add your hobbies, like playing basketball.
Okay, it looks like this year they changed back. I think previously there used to be a place for hobbies, but this year I think they only made 10 spots for you to put all of your experiences, and you're just gonna use one of those spots to discuss your hobbies. And you can actually, if you have 3 hobbies, you don't have to use 3 different positions to express your hobbies. You can just use one of them. So if you play soccer, you play cricket, and you like to cook, you can, one of those boxes, you don't have to use 3 because you only have 10, especially if you have a lot of things to say. You can just use one of them, and say hobbies. You can title that hobbies, and then you describe all of your hobbies in there. Anybody who wants to know about your hobbies would specifically look and then read about all of your hobbies. Don't put one hobby here, soccer, and then cricket, then cooking, and then travel, and then it takes 4 positions. Then you don't have places to put your research and your other experiences. So just use one of them. You can use the last one, whichever one, because hobbies is usually like outside of work. So that's the last thing. You discuss work first, and then so once you've put in all the other experiences, from your clinical experiences, your volunteer experiences, to everything else, and everybody is comfortable, and your research experiences, then at the end of the day, you can just use the last box and say, hey, these are I love to cook. You can describe whatever I want to describe in there. I love to cook, I love to travel, I love to play cricket, I love to play soccer, I love to play basketball, and all that stuff. You can describe that in one box. That's what I encourage people to do for this year's application with the changes that have taken place.
How much? Yep. I also think like that. But there's one major problem while adding your hobbies into the hobbies section.
There's a problem.
They have made it more complicated. Like you cannot have, in the hobby section when you are trying to write your hobby, right? Words and stuff like that. It's not like you put your hobby, and then afterwards you write something. It used to be previously. So one of the candidates, yeah, that's what I was saying. It asks you for organization and the title of that particular hobby. One of the candidates asked, like, because I can see her question so many times. She's asking, her OET score is actually pending, and she is 2017 graduate, and she hasn't received the ACFMG certificate yet. So should she apply or not?
She hasn't
Because
received.
like
She hasn't
I
received
just
what?
tried to
What yet?
OET certificate. I don't know. Did you have to give OET?
No, I didn't have to. I didn't have to give OAT. But if she has already taken step 1 and she has taken step 2, generally for medical graduates, you have to be ECFMG certified to apply. I would say she should get everything ready, because if she has passed the OET already and she's just waiting for the certificate, it's just a matter of time before she gets ECFMG certified. So while she's waiting for that, get everything ready. She may not send her application out on the exact day that everyone is sending theirs out, end of September, but it may be October, but still sending out, still sending. Don't wait. If you're just waiting for OET and you've already taken it and you're just waiting, because once you have taken step 1 and step 2 and you choose any of those pathways and you just have to take OET and follow the pathway, once you have passed the OET and you qualify for the pathway, it's just downstream. Everything else is just going to flow. So don't wait. Actually go ahead and take the OET. And sorry, go ahead and submit request for your letters of recommendation, request for write your personal statement, prepare a resume, and just wait for ECFMG to confirm. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to communicate with ECFMG nowadays. You send them an email, you call, they don't pick anymore. They used to pick. You send them an email, they respond 1 month later. And so a lot of things are going wrong with ECFMG recently, unfortunately, and we pay them a lot of money for them to be, delivering what they are delivering. But get everything ready, set everything up, and just wait for them to make you ECFMG certified. As soon as they approve that you're ECFMG certified, then you send your application in. But if you're an American graduate, you can apply without being ECFMG certified. That's allowed, as long as you have graduated from med school. The general,
yep, also agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One thing I see this as constantly, whatever my experience is, I won't suggest anybody to apply to osteopathic programs. So what do you think about that, Dr. Basu? So do you suggest anybody like non-US IMGs to apply to programs which are osteopathic?
Oh, the thing is, when they are evaluating residents for either allopathic or osteopathic programs, they use scores. So the advantage is more than 70% of programs in America are allopathic. So it's MD or MBBS or whatever we have. That's good. Osteopathic, they have just about 20% of the programs. And that's why you see a lot of, instead, the osteopathic guys are writing USMLE in order to compete with us. Because when they are evaluating us for allopathic medical schools, they look at our USMLE scores, right? It used to be step 1, now it's step 2. So if you're applying to an allopathic program, osteopathic program, and you don't have COMLEX, then it's very difficult for an osteopathic program to evaluate you. So over the years, if even osteopathic American graduates who have not taken USMLE, when they apply to allopathic programs, the programs don't take them seriously, because they'll be like, we cannot compare your score with our own. So it's difficult for us to put both of you together. So now step 1 is just pass and fail. They don't consider it anymore. So what osteopathic applicants are doing now is that they are just taking step 2. They don't have to take step 1. So they just take step 2 and then I'll apply to, like, my program is allopathic, but we have like 5 out of 30 of us, we have almost 5, if I'm not mistaken, in our batch who are osteopathic. And to the best of my knowledge, I've discussed with like 2 or 3 of them, and all of them took step 1 and step 2 USMLE. So they took their COMLEX exams in order to finish their own osteopathic, but then again, they took step 1 and step 2. So if you're going to apply for osteopathic programs, then I would probably encourage that you go write COMLEX. So if you write COMLEX and you have a score in COMLEX, it's going to be easier for them to now evaluate you based on their complex exams, because now they're going to be looking at the complex score, and then they can compare with the complex score of whoever is applying to their program, and then they can see where they can rank for you to apply. So it's kind of difficult for us, for the medical graduates to apply there, because they're not going to take you seriously, that you just have USMLE score and you don't have any complex. So they're just not gonna take you very seriously. But there's no harm trying.
Yeah, that was clear. That was clear. That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I think it's already an hour, and you have answered most of the questions. So Dr. Basil, if you have anything to add, or if you want, I think right now you are reviewing series,
I'm
personal
in
statements,
Dallas.
or how do you do that?
I'm in Dallas.
Awesome. Yeah. So I was interested to know that, like, if some of the candidates, if they are interested in getting their CV or personal statement reviewed, so do you do that kind of
Yeah,
stuff also?
yeah, that's something I actually do that. But it's getting I'm getting a little overwhelmed. I've been looking. I mean, you can send it. A lot of people just upload it on their link on my LinkedIn account and say, please, can you take a look? Usually I used to try to do it within 24 hours, but I'm on an internal medicine rotation right now. Internal medicine is very stressful. This is my only day off. So when I get a day off, I want to sleep. I want to, do so many things at the same time, because tomorrow I'm going back to work and it's 12 hours. Technically, it's 12 hours, 7 to 7, but I get to the hospital by 6 a.m. And, last minute, if you have like a code or you have like a rapid response, you end up leaving the hospital 1 or 2 hours later. And so it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's tiring. So, but I mean, if you send the applications, I'll probably be able to review some, and then as much as possible. I hope I've answered all the questions. Did I miss anyone? I'm trying to look through and see. They asked me to do OMT. Was I able to answer all the questions?
So I have actually, yeah, almost all of the questions
Okay.
we have answered, because I was actually noting down all those questions also, and I was parallelly seeing it as well. So
Oh,
I
okay.
think that's it. Thank you, Dr. Basil, for your time.
Okay.
Already
And then, yeah, one thing I may just want to add
an
is
hour.
that,
And definitely, if we need any more of those information from you, we'll definitely.
okay, you're welcome. But one last thing I want to add is that no matter how bad or good your application looks, if they call you for interview, forget it, because I've seen this happen where, okay, I have 2 attempts in step 1 or step 2, or my year of graduation is long, and then they call me for interview in a very good program, and then now I'm feeling uncomfortable because this program has a big name. Why is he calling me for interview? They're just trying to use me. They're not going to rank me. And so you go to the interview with a mentality that is already going to make you fail, right? So you should understand that if you are called for an interview, zero game. If you have 200 score in step 1 and some other person has 250 score in step 2, they call both of you for interviews. It's zero-sum game. You can match, another person can match. So it's how you are prepared, you present yourself during the interview. Because once you have had the way in for the interview, that means it's fair game for everyone. So that's one thing I also want to, so that, a lot of people go with that mentality. I don't have good score. A big program is calling me. Oh, my scores are very bad. Then they go to the interview with the wrong mindset and they end up failing. And then the last thing I also want to mention is that, you should form groups and do interview prep. Very importantly, learn your open statement. Make, I would say 1 minute, max 1 minute and 20 seconds, or 1 minute and 15 seconds. An opening statement. Hi, my name is Basil. Born and raised in Cameroon. Have 5 siblings. Went to medical school in Nigeria because of my quest for studies. I'm the first generation physician, first in my family to become a physician, and I had to fight for it going to another country at the age of 19. I graduated from med school. I've worked as a physician in Nigeria, and then I came to the US to practice, to train as a resident, so I can gain more knowledge and skill and grow in this academics. While I've been here, I've done so many clinical jobs, including clinical research, along with publications. So I don't only have clinical knowledge, but I also have clinical research knowledge, and I've published. I have done several clinical externships, gotten exposure to a lot of electronic health record systems. I am very eager to learn. I am trainable. I respect authority. I understand what authority is, and I'm always ready to learn. I'm ready to hit the ball rolling. Your program interests me because of 1, 2, 3, and that's why I'm here interviewing with you. Simple, straightforward. If you notice, I was forceful. I want to, put that adrenaline in the information. So yeah, you want to, arrange um, your opening statement, you know, just to give a general idea of who you are, because that's always going to 90% of the time, that's always going to be the first question in the interview. I had 5 interviews, and each interview I was interviewed by 3 or 4 people at least, and all of them, the first question is always, tell me about you. So it got to a point where, when I was going for interview, tell me about you, I'd already subconsciously had said it so many times that it just became second nature to me. So yeah, but you have to word it very well, make it pushful, make it inspirational, but very short, succinct, and give a general invitation. And that's something you should practice. And so you shouldn't break. And the second thing about interviews is, don't go into an interview and there is a weird silence. I think my very first interview, the first time I had an interview in residency, there was a weird silence that I had, where you go and then the interviewer is not saying anything, I'm not saying anything, and then we get stuck, in the middle, and it's just weird. That's an example of a bad interview. That's an example of a bad interview. So yeah, there's some little interview tips. You should be the talker. If you go in, there's some interviewers that are introverts. And so they'll tell me about you, ask 1 or 2 questions and stay quietly. So you have to, figure out how to fill the gap. And the way you fill the gap is you learn about that interview. I don't go for any interview. I usually read about my interviewers. If they have done research, I'm on top of the research they have done. I've read about it, have an idea. If they play soccer, usually you see their profile somewhere in the periphery, but just have an idea, so that if it starts getting weird, you start feeling like that silence is coming, because hey, I saw, I was going through your profile, I saw your research on this disease. It's fascinating how you came up with this diagnosis and this stuff. It's going to light them up. Everybody wants to talk about themselves and their achievement. They are going to start talking about that part. Yeah, it was a 5-man panel. We worked on this article. We did this and that, and then he's going to start talking, and then you just sit there and let him talk. And that's how to overcome some of those gaps. Know your interviewers. If you call you for an interview, start reading when they send you because usually they'll send you the names of the interviewers. Most doctors in America, if you browse their names, somehow it's going to come up online. And then you can look whether they have research. If they don't have research, just try to browse and see if there's anything. Usually there is something that they may have done. You may stumble on their LinkedIn profile, their Facebook page, somehow just on a Google search of them. And then you can kind of have an idea what kind of person this is, so that you can prepare in advance if it comes to that, and then you have to bail yourself. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's true. No, it made a lot of sense, because that is quite insightful.
Yeah.
An interview, like, if you get even one interview, and if you can make an impression, then that is indeed sufficient to match, right? You just need to have one good interview. So, Dr. Basil, if you have anything to add, you can, isn't it? Like, if you have one interview and you are on top of it, you are done. Rather than having
if you have one interview and you have one interview, you're on top of it, you are in. That's just the truth. I know when the second time I applied for, I had one interview, I didn't make it. I had this group of the first time I was alone, I didn't know anybody. Second time I met some people and we were working together. There was one person that had one interview, the other guy had 3. I had one. I think like 3 of us had one interview. All of them matched. I was the only one who didn't match. I was felt so devastated and everything, and they were comforting me. Two people had one interview, they matched. I had one interview, I did not match. Then the other guy who was in our group had 3 interviews and matched. So out of all of us, I was the only one who didn't match. So, but that also helped because one of the interviews I had was direct help from these friends. They got in there, they told me, don't worry, we got you. And they vouched for me in their programs, and I ended up having one interview from these guys. So you never know. So hang around the guys you hustle with. If you match into a program, keep them, close to you. And when they get in, if you always struggling together, they are always going to want to see you succeed. And when they get into their program, when they get the chance to recommend you. I had one direct interview from someone who, you know, we struggled together. They got in, they were like, we got you. They spoke, vouched for me, and I got an interview in their program. You know, so keep your connections. It's networking. It still boils down to networking, you know. Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Basu.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
It was a nice time, you know, I had with you all. Please send me this video. I would love to have it.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send you the recording.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you the recording.
Okay,
and if we have any more plans, I'll definitely let you know. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Basu.
Yeah, we can do this again. Especially, we can do it again, especially during the interview time. We can certainly do this again. When you are getting interviews, you want to have tips for interviews and stuff, we can have one more where I can prepare. I think I probably have the questions that I was asked in some of my interviews. I wrote some of them down. If I dig deep, I probably should be able to find them. So I will find that, and maybe we can go through. I can ask the questions, see how you answer, and we can kind of reason why they asked some questions and walk through it, and then, you know, arrange because the most important thing first, arrange your intro statement, your introductory statement. Tell me about you. Arrange that. It should be 1 minute, 20 seconds max. And then, you know, how you approach the subsequent questions, and, you know, how to be smooth.
Definitely, I'll wish to you about it, and you also make a mindset. You at least, because I can see so many people are loving your, actually, whatever you are saying, your story, your success story, then afterwards your experiences and your whole thing which we have talked about. So I think I'll definitely reach out to you for one more session regarding interviews. Once we are done with all those,
I'm always open. You know, if we get a date, I really want a lot of people to get into US residency. You know, so if we get a date, I'm definitely here. We can do this again.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Basu. Thank you. We'll respect your time, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. You have a great weekend.
Okay.
Bye. Thank
you.